Hello. Check it out. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. I need 3. I need to complete my collection. But it won't be complete until I have 20. If I had the file, I could 3D print them myself. One day. Okay. So the plan is to launch Grand Prix Thursday evening. And yeah, I'm waiting to hear back from them because I submitted it all on Friday, and then they say it takes business days, and it's a 3-day weekend, so not even until Tuesday. And then they say it could take 5 business days, so that would mean I would miss the deadline I've set for myself to start the campaign. The campaign for Grand Prix Part 3 of 6. And yeah, I'm thinking of what I can do to like get it out there. I'm going to pull out all the stops to some degree. I'm going to email. I don't normally email friends and family, for a longest time I wasn't doing that at all. But there's quite a few who would and want to buy my books, but I kind of like not telling them just because I'm like, I'm making a living and I don't even need to rely on friends and family to buy my books. Because that's how it used to be when I was younger, is they'd be the only ones who'd buy it. So anyway, on this one, I am gonna tell all my friends and family, which that might amount to, if I'm lucky, that might amount to like another grand or another 2 grand for the campaign. But yeah, depending on what, I think I'm setting a goal because Indiegogo kind of changed. There's no more like just make whatever you want and they give you the money. You have to set a number. You can still set a low number, which many people might do. They'd set like 500 for the goal or whatever, and then you just hit way over it. But I'm going to set 12,000. But I was thinking, and if you don't hit it, you don't get the money. But I'm pretty sure we can hit 12,000. But I was like, maybe we could aim for 16,000. Like push it a little bit, maybe 20,000. In my head, so because this is actually a trade release, those are bigger than floppies. So I really, yeah, that's why I'm kind of pulling out all the stops. I'm gonna see whatever. I'm gonna DM people. I'll go on. I'm gonna go on shows, but that's kind of I do that anyway. But yeah, see if I can. Well, that's the number in my head is if we can hit 20, and what we can hit on day one is always interesting too. Infinite, what's up, man? I think Hotel Story did 7K on day one, I think. Really good day one, and then kind of slow. The whole rest of the campaign was 5K for a 12K total between 2 platforms. I want to keep it all on just one platform if possible too on this one, just in Indiegogo. And yeah, another kind of big thing about this campaign is it's there's also the collected short story or essays, which is kind of like a spiritual sequel to interactivity. Let me see if I can share that here. What do we have here? 1 second. Share screen. Chrome tab. I think this is it. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, so I'm sharing this. So I drag this over here. Then I can see both. So this is what it is so far. So it's 28 essays. It's formatted kind of small. I think it's 5.5 by 8.5, indented, kind of big font. So, I mean, you could definitely read this in like 2 hours, probably the whole thing. Um, Maybe it might be a little longer. I don't know. But yeah, it tells you it's 103 pages. That might go up just a little bit. And I might try and write like one more essay because it won't even come out for 3 months. The whole campaign's going to be 3 months. Um, so yeah, 3 months to hypothetically raise 20 4,000, and that's based on how the past campaign has done. And this is keeping in mind that uh, that yeah, the various sources of support have shifted and changed over the years, and crowdfunding in general is down. The highest I ever got was JD Kirby. What's up, man? Um, Earthbound 2, kind of at the height of all crowdfunding, did for me, it did 80 thou. That was the highest I've ever raised. And that put into like basically greenlit the Narwhal Shorts collection, and a lot of Cerberus got funded because of that. So like two whole books, which it was like, yeah, it was like pretty much all the money, all the profit from that just got invested straight back into more comics, which is what I want to do. I'm like trying to manifest more of that a little bit, because another era, and who knows if that will happen. But I'm ready when it does, because I'm backed up like multiple projects, multiple scripts, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, like 10 projects, 10 scripts, because I've just been writing, since I was like 30, where I was writing, where a lot of what I write is good. When I was in my 20s, I write a lot, but it wasn't good. And so now I have I'll look back, I'll be like, yeah, this is still good. I haven't been able to get it produced, but it's still good. So still trying to get some of these projects made. There's a spiritual sequel to Cerberus, which Cerberus Part 2 hasn't come out publicly yet, but that has a home and will get released sooner or later. And there's always a little delay with these things, unfortunately, but that is going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. And that was kind of from a little bit, not to tease too much, but a little bit from like doors opening. It was kind of the one little move from doors opening from Vatican City, which I'm still wondering about that, of like, if I can knock on doors, because I kind of haven't, and no one's reached out to me, but I feel like I could reach out to people, but I kind of haven't. And because part of the issue is, I know this is like what everyone worries about. Is like, you definitely want to reach a big audience if you can. You kind of want Hollywood money if you can, which would be the biggest audience probably. But all that's a little bit like, far fetched or whatever. The thing I want is like, probably most is like pretty successful crowdfunding to make a living and fund more books. I just really want to be able to fund more books kind of while I'm working on, which is the way it was for 2 or 3, even 4 years there. And now it's kind of the last couple years. I definitely don't have money to fund extra books. Although actually some of the payment from Vatican City went just straight back into finishing the funding for Cerberus. JD, yeah, I've been rifling through about 10 scripts that never got greenlit and transitioning them into comics. It's a process. I feel your pain. Yeah, we're all like backed up, and just when it all starts really flowing, I got these like fantasies basically, and like my kind of there's a couple, but one is like running an imprint. I'd really like to run an imprint. The other one is like a almost like a buyout, which would be maybe down the line. Like, this is more of like a 5 to 10 year. Maybe it's realistic, but definitely not realistic now. But a buyout being like, I have like, if you add up all my books, it's like 1,200 pages, and in a couple more years it'll hit 2,000 pages. It'll hit like 10 200-page graphic novels or something, and that'll be like my body of work, and just like selling that to like Dark Horse, and maybe even as creator owned, but then that they publish the Narwhal line, and it does reach a new audience. Definitely fantasize about that. Fantasize a little bit about like kind of people coming around more and more on like my art style, because it does feel a little bit like it's not exactly like a glass ceiling, but especially my more digital style is kind of indie, where like I can picture like a mainstream editor being like, this book's great, but the art style is more indie, meaning like they're not going to publish it. And a lot of that would have to do with, the the comic buying audience. Um, but JD says that's a huge project. Well, I mean, it's like, yeah, 2,000 pages, but that's just like everything I've been working on over 10 years, all added up, you know. Shoot, what was I saying? One second, let me have a sip here. Oh yeah, the comic buying public coming around more and more on both my art styles because I kind of have a digital one and a traditional one. Traditional one is accepted by mainstream, but then it is kind of 50-50. It still gets like, you know, criticism or whatever. And the digital is almost not accepted by mainstream right now. And I'm like, that could just change. Like, cause I sometimes think I'm just like, I think it's good. I like it, especially the digital one. I would kind of like defend nonsensically without logic. Just like it is good. Like if someone says they don't like it, I'm not going to explain why why you should change your mind. I'm just saying I think it's good. So maybe down the line, people get on board. And that'd be fun. That'd be fun. There's still like maybe a future of more mainstream success. We'll see. But Infinite, you do good work, brother. So one thing in all this is so Grand Prix coming up here. This year is a little bit of like a catch up year. That's one reason I haven't sort of been pounding on doors yet for Dark Horse or whoever to look for necessarily like more work or to get on another book or something. Um, or even like, you know, bothered Mark, like, do you have any more work or do you have any, could you know, do you have anyone you could recommend me to reach out? Like I haven't done any of that. Um, and it's kind of because this year I do want it to be a catch up year because there was a lot of projects put on hold to do Vatican City. And the main one's Grand Prix, which is coming out now. So Grand Prix, it's actually like a year later than it would have been, or even a year and change. And it has been like 2 or 3 years since Grand Prix Part 2. Maybe it's been 2 years, which is a long time. Especially just for these double issues. Each one is a double issue. So we're three now, which is 6 issues, it's like 160 pages, I think. All three of them added up. 155, I think. One second. Right, just do it first. Well, yeah, and I mean it's just the limitations of what I can do. You know, I don't know. We're talking about other fantasies is like a full-time colorist maybe who's better than me because I like my coloring, but there are definitely colorists who are better than me. A lot of them are mainstream and they might be kind of expensive. I'm not sure, but if I had money, but you know what? One thing is I am a little curious about the whole business of comics in the mainstream. They still need to kind of make a profit, and they do have a little bit of a thing where like Absolute Batman will make so much profit that it's insane, and then quite a few things on like the movies almost used to be like that or whatever, where quite a few other things actually lose a little bit of money, but they have the one thing that makes so much money that they're just fine and they keep shooting and one thing will pop off or whatever. And yeah, that's how it works or whatever. But obviously do you could throw together a book with a budget that's quite under control, and then that is like a really great way to break if you're kind of breaking even or making profit. That's like a good thing. And I think Vatican City was like that because there's just the fact I did everything. It was especially by mainstream standards, it was very cheap. And Mark works for free. He doesn't charge for his writing duties. So that book was insanely cheap to produce. Like if you rank that, it might rank number one of the mainstream. It's like the actual lowest budget comic of the year or whatever. I would claim that. I have no proof. And that's just an interesting factoid because you just know it at least broke even. I think it might have made because I've told people like it pretty much did sell out, but it didn't have a huge print run. It didn't get that many orders. So it was like, I don't know, not super, not a huge cultural impact beyond the almost like my online social circles, which was that's not that's nothing to be scoffed at, but that was like the main support, which was awesome. That was really fun, and it was fun for Mark too. All that positivity around the book. It was one of the bigger uh, yeah, Twitter releases or whatever. But that's like a reality too. Is like, yeah, Twitter doesn't amount to too much necessarily. That's the difference between me and you, Morty. I never go back to the carpet store. Uh, just do it. For me, it's finding the right artist to get certain projects going, style and work ethic. It's not easy. I feel you, dude. I remember the shelf copies kept disappearing at my LCS. Delay, nice newsletters. Yeah, you know something. I'm actually kind of happy with this title because I didn't know what to call it, and they were called different things. And I think the mailing list was called something different. It was called the Storytelling Newsletter, but then just calling it Storytelling Newsletters, and then it being compilations from that mailing list. And I was rereading. I reread all of them. Some of them were cringe, and I deleted them or I rewrote them. So I'm definitely trying to take away the cringe. You know, even interactivity has a little cringe in it, but I just don't care. I'm definitely really happy with that book. I really like it. I'm really glad that I kind of thought of something to write about that I'm really interested in that I just feel like nobody else was writing about. No, still nobody's really writing about it. And the haters about interactivity, they'll say like, "Oh, it's just dramatic irony." And I'm like, "So? I wrote a book about dramatic irony. Like what's wrong with that? Like nobody's doing that either." And yeah, it's awesome. Um, but yeah, the some of it, there's just the voice because I hadn't written a book like that before, and I didn't know how high or low to go with like the know-it-allness or like the just the voice of like how pumped are you trying to be on your own shit to get other people pumped or whatever. And storytelling newsletters, I'm adjusting. It's a little bit of an improvement in that regard. There's still some of that because some of this you can't even talk about without sort of sounding accidentally know-it-all-y a little bit. But yeah, like I don't know. There's 28 essays, and I'm trying to make sure that they're all pretty legit. And there's a bit. It's a much more focus on psychology for all of them, and that psychology huge overlap with interactivity, but it was relatively unexplored. Even though that is like a big part of what interactivity is, but it's not directly addressed. I feel like almost like those two things, interactivity, psychology, like that's like literally all you need. Because I thought for a while after I wrote interactivity, I was like, oh my God, this is all you need. This is literally all you need. And with interactivity, it's funny too, because I've said this before, but yeah, like with comics, there aren't that many examples. It's kind of really hard to think of examples where they are super blatant with it, where it's kind of fun. Movies, it's a little rare too. And whenever movies do it, it's super awesome. So I was a little confused why it's not done more. And but you know what movie had, I don't know if it counts as interactivity. It actually counts more of the feeling, emotion, thought pipeline, but Marty Supreme was high up there in this regard as far as like very psychological movie, but there's actually a ton of dramatic irony in that movie, but it's kind of like from a bird's eye view. So it's more like as you don't notice it while you're watching it, but it's like kind of when you're thinking about it later, you're like, I actually kind of started laughing like that. I was like, maybe that's almost like a theme or a way to guide the movie is they almost set up like this guy that keeps getting in his own way. The dramatic irony basically being like everything he does to try and make his life easier just makes it harder. And he's just he wants it so bad that he's kind of ruining his chances. Um, and that is really fun, like a really fun movie to do that. And it's fun if you could, when you boil down this 2.5 hour story with all this crazy epic stuff, and then you're like, oh, it's just one sentence of what it is. Like, I bet that might be like a little bit what the writers did. They kind of start with that sentence, you can grow from there. And I'm doing a lot of that with Percival, and I can't wait for that to come out. But that one is funny though, because there's a yeah, there's like a line where it's not exactly spars. There's like this king that I kind of like in Percival. He's a good character, and he's called the Merchant King. And his deal is he's kind of like a fat coward, but he's a good guy. So you'd be like, he's like a bad king, right? I'm like, no, he's like one of the best kings for some reason. And his deal is like he's really pro peace, really anti war, and he does do CIA stuff of like helping both sides, selling weapons to both sides. But his whole thing is he's trying to keep it balanced so there isn't genocide. And it's based on a little bit on shit. Who's the guy? People kind of hate him, and maybe rightfully so, but he's the guy who kind of invented Middle East foreign policy in the 70s. Kissinger. And so Kissinger died like 5 years ago or whatever. And yeah, like both sides hate him. But it was funny. I have a I have a contrarian. He was actually my soccer coach. He's older than me. He's the father of a couple of my best friends. We all grew up together. We're the same age. All play soccer together. He was a soccer coach. He's a contrarian, and I think he's a genius. His sons are really smart too. And so we're all like kind of ripping on Kissinger because for a while we would do these things called Think Tank Thursdays where we would meet, drink beer, and like talk about the world or whatever. And we did that from like 2015 to 2020, maybe something like that. It eventually kind of fell off, and that we were the only ones in that era doing stuff like that. But that was pretty fun. But at one of those, we're talking about Kissinger, and then this guy, he's like, we don't know like what his changes did. Like we didn't get to see the world if he didn't do what he was doing. We didn't get to see. He's like that might have been way worse. We don't know. And I was like, okay, that's honestly like a okay point. And then I was thinking like, oh, that is like a so not that this guy, not that necessarily that Kissinger was like legitimately avoiding genocide, but by like using it as an excuse to sell to both sides. But that's a funny thought, funny idea for a character, funny way to like justify him being kind of a you would think shady, but then he's like kind of a good guy. But he has a cool line in it where like his wife, because they're estranged, and there's some funny things where they actually do kind of get back together. And then there's a little bit of a happy ending after one, and we just touched in with them once because we're kind of moving on because Percival's moving on, but we get to touch in on with them once before we move on in the new episode, and he's kind of proud of himself for having navigated this crazy turmoil period where it looked like there might have been a lot of war or whatever. And his wife is like, "Yeah, it's a little boring though." And he's like, "Really? You think it's boring?" He's like, "I think the mechanizations that enable peace are much more interesting than the ones that enable war." And I was like, "Oh, so that's like what, you know." And the thing is, I don't know if that's about what is that going to be what every episode because I'm like it's a little different with movies and each episode might have its own thing, but that was a good one, like kind of a good line. And and because yeah, if you think about it, like because this is part of the thing I was thinking again, like I'm setting it pre-flood to have a little more freedom. And then the idea being that uh the Arthurian myths, they're kind of two things. They're Gaelic, pre-Christian, combined with when they're written down later, Christian stuff gets added in, and the Grail is added in. But I'm kind of going back more to the Grailic stuff, but keeping the Christian stuff. But obviously, it can't be Christian because you're going pre-Christian. So the Grail is still there, and you're like, yeah, the Grail existed before it was at the table for Christ and everything. It was still this mystical object before the flood. It was still this object, and that at that point, God, Christian God, is like undercover. Like he's the only way he's interacting with the world is with this cup, and gonna uh he's gonna like kind of what have something to do with King Arthur and Percival in particular. And then so yeah, so the thing that I was kind of a little bit of a starting point too. I'm not the only one to do this. I feel like Hideo Kojima kind of does this. I might have talked about this before on streams before too, but like I thought I tried to start watching. Apologies if anyone in the chat likes this show, but it's called Rome. I think on HBO maybe. I started watching it. This is only like a couple weeks ago. I think it has a little bit of research, like all that kind of old historic, like Rome type stuff is great research for possible Percival stories. But I turned it off really kind of quickly because it started and it was like the idea that like that there's kind of upheaval in Rome at the far reaches of the empire or whatever. It's breaking down their control, but then they visualize it kind of with quote unquote riots, the way we might see riots. Like there's rioters and there's Romans trying to keep the peace or whatever. And then the rioters are like running at the Romans and getting stabbed and dying. And I turned it off because I was like, okay, nobody would do that. I don't care how much you, at any point in history, at any point that, I don't care if like the mob mind and you're high on your own supply and you're all jacked on, hormones or whatever. And even like if you're trying to impress your friends and you got, yeah, testosterone and shit, you're not running into a line of Roman soldiers just to get killed for no reason. Like it's just called self-preservation. I choose to believe that throughout history, yeah, people like it's so brutal, so many people died. I'm like, yeah, but people had self-preservation. People aren't gonna like even yeah, like even like battles, which actually I did like seeing this idea. I saw it at one point in Kingdom of Heaven because there is a part where they line up and they might have a big battle. And this is like, oh, this is kind of how it used to go a lot of times. Is like you amass your forces on the hill, they amass their forces, and then you could do tricks and everything. And but then like the two leaders ride out and they talk and they're like, "Are we really gonna do this?" And then they decide. But I was like, are there ways you could make this like a rule? But it's kind of hard because like, and this applies to like genocide. This is where you get like, okay, throughout history, if you're talking about killing, yeah, genocide, where it's 0 to 1, where you have zero chance. If it's 50-50, a lot of times they don't fight. That's kind of the thing I want to like explore with Percival a little bit. And so I'm like, when do they fight? I mean, you'll have like for modern stuff like with Trump, even you'll have like wet works with special forces. And yeah, you'll have that. You're not going to say necessarily have these. If the battle is 50-50, and then that's in Kingdom of Heaven, they choose not to fight because it's like why they literally just obliterate both their armies. So then you're like, well, when would they even fight? And it's like, yeah, that is an interesting question, but one rule is a cornered rat, quote unquote, will fight. So yeah, like genocide, cornered rat, um, and yeah, so what you would have like a lot of times you might have like strategic retreats. You have like this like kind of stuff happens in. I just watched a few YouTube videos of like Napoleon's campaigns, into like Germany and Russia and stuff, uh and yeah, it's like a lot of times they aren't gonna fight him because they get totally destroyed, and so they're just like retreating basically. And then at some point they've retreated enough that they have amassed a force that could fight him. And then yeah, and then I don't know anything about more because I'm like maybe at one point they do just straight up it's 50-50, and then they do just fight and just like a ton of people die. Because that, does happen here and there. I feel like that happens in the Civil War a lot. Um, and then it changes with technology too. Like World War One had crazy, weird messing with the math of self-preservation, kind of people doing miscalculations basically of how it even all kind of works. But I remember like even in Braveheart, the way that they do it that's kind of fun is it's like, word spreads because if they're gonna have a battle, you almost have to tell the bad guys, I guess, like or the other side, so you can even have your battle, so people can get there. So they would like schedule it and make a place for it. Like, okay, we're gonna show you, like, I don't know, like what they would say. Like, I actually kind of want to rewatch Braveheart, but it's like they'd be like, okay, we do have an army, and we'll prove it to you. We're gonna amass the army on this hill, and be there or be square. And then they all show up. And sure enough, they do have enough of an army to have a chance. And okay, so that's the other thing. People will fight if they think they can win. So, and then does that apply to a 50-50? This is where, yeah, like fighting is not fractal necessarily. Like one on one, that's another thing. Like death throughout history, the one on one deaths are pretty high, like duels in the Wild West, because that is like high testosterone, whatever. You think you have a chance. Everyone thinks they have a chance. And yeah, like maybe dumb people or whatever. Like not everyone is so smart that they're cowards even or whatever, that they would just never fight because they're like, oh, 50-50, F that. I'm not taking those odds. It's like, yeah, And even samurai, like I think Musashi, did they say he killed like 500 people? But it's in like one-on-one duels. And it's like, yeah, it's like he's the best, so he keeps winning. People keep thinking they might be able to beat him, and then they die. And so yeah, one-on-one. But if you make it 500 versus 500, that's a lot more like, are we even going to do this? Like, do you guys really want to freaking all just fight and die? Like, what are we actually fighting for? Maybe we should and that is like the kind of the fun if you think about this Merchant King, like just literally trying to orchestrate 50-50 everywhere, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50. Um, and how tenuous even that is, and even controlling, yeah, like what do you call it? People's like just how morale or whatever kind of. Let me read what the chat's saying a little bit. Uh, Interactivity could be required reading on college campuses. It's that well laid out. Oh, thanks, man. That's a fantasy of mine. But I don't know. Just shout it out once in a while if you like it. We'll keep. It sold a lot. It sold like 1,000. I'm always like, is it sold over 1,000? I'll kind of do the numbers in my head. I'm like, nah. I think I might have been saying it sold 1,000 when it was like at 900, and now it's at like 1,000, or maybe it's a little more. But it's like in the last year, it sold like 20, maybe. Like so that's like not that much, but it did have a big spurt in the beginning. Um, if you want newsletters, stay up to date here. Yes. Yeah, thanks, Dilly. That I think that's just my yes, that is newsletters. I'm like that confused me because I'm like I actually have a MailChimp account that is the newsletters, but that is defunct basically. So yeah, don't post that one. Post this one, which I think is Email Octopus. Um, Marty Supreme made several people come in the audience when I saw it in the theater. I heard it splat on the floor. I actually knew the fat guy's dad in that movie. Cool. You talk like him, Bobby. Bobby, you could have been in that movie. Your period, they would have cast you. I saw him and I was like, oh shit. I didn't know he was gonna be in there. Cowardly protagonists are funny, like Rincewind in Terry Pratchett's books. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can make them likable. Like even and sometimes they're like cowardly, except once in a while they'll do a brave thing, and you're like, F yeah. Like what's the one everyone likes a lot that I like too, but shoot, what's it called? Um it's the one about like the British cavalryman in Afghanistan. Flashman, Flashman. So yeah, in case for people just getting here, I'm kind of just ranting, but this stream in general is the update for hopefully Thursday launch. It might get delayed because Indiegogo has to approve it, and turns out today is also a holiday. It takes supposedly up to 5 non-holiday days, and I have submitted on Friday, like halfway through the day or whatever, and so it's still like I'm like, is it gonna even? I picked an interesting time to do it, the 3-day weekend and whatever Thursday, but um, yeah, Grand Prix 3 launching. I'm always excited, wondering how it'll do. I know Earthbound has its own little fan base. It has people who keep up with it, like it. I get hit up every few months. I'll get a random email, just people being like, When's the new Earthbound? When's the new Earthbound?" Which I really appreciate, which is fun that there are people who like it that much. And the goal, yeah, again, is like I just want to get it out more and more, get hopefully more and more readers, and then hopefully break that little glass ceiling to kind of some a little more mainstream uh, recognition, even if it's not necessarily like mainstream publishing. I just kind of still feel like crowdfunding and a lot my work as a writer is like ignored by who mainstream basically. But the art has broken through a little bit thanks to Mark Miller, which is awesome. But I'm almost like it's a little ironic because I've always been a little more interested in the writing, even going back into my 20s. Uh, but and I've been writing this whole time. I was saying I'm backed up because I've been writing, and you can only draw so much. I have a whole backlog of cool scripts and projects that I want to do that I like to fund with me, not as the artist. And I'm like, I could run a little imprint. Like it could be me who does it, or I could do it under a banner, all these things. Um, but yeah, like so this year, Grand Prix, Cerberus should see the light of day at some point, although I'm not sure the exact details yet, but that'll be awesome. I know people have been waiting for that one. And the new Brendan project, I'm working on a Naked Samurai kind of graphic novel type thing that I'm really excited about. And that it's about though I'm hoping I can get it's because Grand Prix is like pretty much done. So it's just the Brendan project, which is like a manga, and then Naked Samurai, which is like black and white digital, Earthbound ish. They're both like 100 pages. I'm like, I can do those both this year, I'm pretty sure. And if I get those done, then it's like, then it's on for Percival. And Percival is the one I'm like, should I just skip to Percival? Because I have a bunch of it written. I could jump in now. But I got to finish these other projects. I just feel like I have to. But Percival is the one I'm the most pumped on. Yeah. I feel like Henry Kissinger had a weird dick, like deformed. That might have had maybe something to do with a little bit of everything. Um, I saw the first couple seasons of Rome. Wait, Rome with Ray Stevenson? That was an amazing series. Only 2 series, but paced well. Uh, I'd make one more willing to risk it. YouTube blocked a comment of mine. Religious based on a glorious death are interesting. Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. That is something I didn't mention. That is a little outside the box, and I haven't even fully explored that in Percival. And I don't know if I want to because I just can't relate. But maybe that's like I don't know. Am I allowed to just do I have to relate to everything? I mean, to write it, it's good if you can wrap your head around. Um, yeah, that is interesting though, and that would be a huge way that they do it. Um, but I think even then, I don't know. I wonder. Maybe that's the ultimate counter to my whole idea. My whole idea that it wasn't the way when we think of the hit like antiquity and it being brutal. Yeah, we're not thinking about it as brutal as it's not as brutal as you're picturing in your head is what I think. But maybe it was, especially if you have people with religious death in there. I like with Westwind pretended not to cast a spell against someone, then kicked the guy in the balls. Couldn't cast spells, so use it as a ruse. I'm an Earthbound fan. There's not a lot of ongoing series with this many pages in this corner of indie comics. Yeah, that's a good point too, because it has added up by this point. There's the 2 trades for the first story. Kind of we're working on the second story now. I have a really good idea for the third graphic novel, which would be 2 trades. Um, and it would be, I mean, that'll be fun. That will kind of end it. But then there's a project called The Gaps, which is like in betweens, because even between Grand Prix and the first Earthbound, there's a 4 year gap. And I already wrote it. I wrote like those are more episodic, but it's like how WizKid got to that point, how Spaceman got to that point, how Julia got to that point. And those are all fun, totally fine, like totally worth producing. But I wonder if I can get someone else to draw those maybe at some point. But yeah, Earthbound being like 3 big graphic novels. And there could be like eventually a prequel, like something before the first Earthbound. You could do something with that, but I don't have any solid ideas with that right now. Um, yeah. So yes, let me take a sip here. One second. Um, yeah. What was I was gonna maybe work live, but maybe if I can talk about something for another 20 minutes, then I just won't even work live. But let me see if I. What else do we got on the? So this is going to come out on Thursday. This is um the collected the storytelling newsletter letters. Fantasy and self-insert. This one had an okay quote. There's a big difference between looking at someone who is flying, your jaw hitting the floor, versus being the one who is doing the flying. Forced to watch, you may even get jealous. But we don't get jealous of characters in movies. We root for them. What's the distinction? That's like psychology stuff. And I don't know. I feel like that once I thought of that question, like, that's a cool question. Uh, this one, this one is sort of new-ish for the essay. See if I can read some of it. The year is 1878. A man named Gutenberg Dugerforth calls his friend to bear witness to a new invention. He has captured light. Many frames in a row that have flickered quickly one after the other seem to move. He shows his friend a shot of a tree blowing in the wind. His friend's mind is blown to such a degree that he doesn't recover. It is permablown. He disassociates and empties his pockets of all his cash, writhing on the ground. They quickly monetize the invention. Audiences are equally blown away and can't get enough for a time. But over time, it becomes clear a tree blowing in the wind is now considered rote and will no longer work to keep audiences enraptured, in awe, with pockets flowing. One of Dugenforth's anonymous contemporaries has an idea. Let's put a boy in the tree. A boy in the tree? Are you mad? Well, it's worth a shot. Do it. The audiences responded. Many of their minds were permablown. Will the boy fall? They all screamed. I can't stop watching. Maybe the boy should fall, Dugenforth said 3 months later. Let's kick the boy out of the tree. That's crazy. The boy may be hurt. No, don't you see? We'll put a padded pillow right there underneath the tree. The boy will fall on that. But if the audience see the pillow, they will riot. They won't, you fool. We'll place it just off camera, and we'll get a second shot of the boy on the grass, and we'll put them together. It's like the pillow never existed. Movie magic, don't you see? I should say so. Another mind was permablown that day. So that's a true account history of cinema and storytelling and how it all went down. What else? The CIA. This is a good one. This is a little bit what I was talking to you guys about Kissinger, but I don't think I wrote about Kissinger in this. I wrote about Woodrow Wilson. But yeah, Mexico in the early 1900s was like, it was like the same stuff as the Middle East in the early 2000s. And yeah, and I think this one, it talks about Merlin, and in Dune they do it, but Merlin in the Arthurian mythos, he does like a lot of that nation building type kind of weird semi shady stuff that it's almost like CIA. Like he's almost like the equivalent of CIA in as like a nation building, because Woodrow Wilson is like pre-CIA, but it's like the same shit. And it's yeah, like Merlin's all about that, all about them nation building moves of instigating puppet leaders, getting blackmail on leaders, whatever, funding various uprisings to kind of get what you want. I think there was something here about like the idea that if you kick the can down the road, like it's kind of like what the CIA does, and this happens to Merlin too, where he'll get what he wants, but then, and it's dramatic irony because what he wants ends up screwing him down the line, and that happens to the CIA. Like even at like the obvious one is what the first Middle East guy. I can't even think of his name right now. The first Iraq guy, the weapons of mass destruction guy. We put him in power and gave him weapons in like the 80s or something. And then you cut to 20 years later, then we have to like fight him and take him out of power, and supposedly. And so yeah, so you might be like, well, what the hell are we even doing? Like, are we idiots? We made our own problems. We totally shot ourselves in the foot. But well, that's another one of those weird like Kissinger type things, is like it was actually 20 years. Like, so it might have solved whatever problem there was that we don't really know anymore. Sort of solved that problem for 20 years. That might be worth it. And then every 20 years, yeah, you might have to do a little something. And the same with Merlin. Like, he'll have these things go wrong, but it kind of works. And there's no solution that will work for like 100 years. it might work for 20 years and you gotta do pivot. You like constantly have to update your plan. And yeah, so yeah, that's whatever. Psychology of the Past Pawn. I posted this one on Twitter. Check that one out if you haven't. That's one of my favorites in the book. Um, yeah, this is this the last? And it ends, I think, with this one. I think it does have pretty good like where it begins and where it ends. It's not like it has an actual narrative, but it flows well of like even what it's touching on. But I like this one too. This is about skepticism and how you would deal with a skeptical audience member. And it's a little bit of a trick question because this is another psychology thing, but skepticism is like in a way it's equal or more than like interest and attention. Like it's a form of attention, but it's like a powerful form of attention. It's almost more than any other kind of attention. Skepticism is like the most. So if anyone's skeptical, you've kind of already got them. And there are metaphors for that of like magicians are a lot like their whole plan. The way they kind of work is they have to build up the most skepticism as possible, and there are tricks that you can do to do that. And then yeah, you can convert that skepticism into just amazement or this other form of attention of appreciative attention, trust, kind of just basic trustiness, whatever. Um, yeah, let me see what you guys are saying. Uh, Saddam, Osama, yeah, both those guys, all of them. Are you gonna do something where he inspires Queen Elizabeth to start an empire? No. Is that in the Arthurian myth? But I don't think that works with the timeline because mine is pre-flood. And yeah, the one I'm writing now, it's kind of fun because it's just like a desert crossing, but it's between kind of the two kingdoms, and it's a little like Rome. Like one kingdom dominates the other, and mm, they're like a vassal or whatever. They were conquered like 100 years ago in what actually kind of was a war. Now 100 years later, the merchant king's there. He's just keeping the peace. He works under them kind of fine. He's not trying to get independence or whatever. He's kind of trying to quell if anyone's too wanting independence. He's just trying to keep people happy, kind of, so they don't even want independence. And but between the two like forces, like kingdoms, it's I don't know, but I think it's every 4 years they do a kind of like renewal celebration of their truce, and it's a big festival, and it'll get held on in one side or the other of this through this desert. And so there is like a huge trade route through the desert, and it's basically this highway. And I'm not sure to the level of what they don't have railroads, but it's like it's pre-flood, so I could if I wanted to, but they don't. But they do have these big caravans, but they have like it's almost like a straight up highway, like like they've changed the sand, and so it's like a road, big highway straight through the desert. And it kind of has all these systems of how it works that are fun, that the story gets to explore. And that's like I think that's what I want my next presentation on creative block to be, is on just like systems, I guess. But like, so like one of the ideas that there are tribes that live in the desert and they have their own history. That's like part of the story. You get to find out about them. And I wanted to avoid the kind of trope that would be more the Dune style, where it's like, we don't know how many men are actually out there, and if one man could harvest the power of all the tribes, he could conquer the world. Like, I really didn't want to avoid that. I really wanted to avoid that. I was like, okay, it's a lot more like maybe actual Native Americans in the Old West. Like, there's like 50 of them max, in like a raiding party. So it's not like you need a huge security force even to cross, but you do need something. And they do sometimes talk and communicate with the tribes. But one of the things that they do is make a it's almost like a toll booth, but it's a offering, and for them they say it's to shoot, I think it's called Arin is the god of the wind for devotion, which is the North Kingdom. Um and that's yeah, the god of the wind. So they make the offering to Arin before crossing. So it's at the south end, but it's kind of unspoken, but that's actually payment to the tribe as a little bit of a peace offering to just don't fricking attack us. So the tribe is taking these offerings to Arin. They don't worship Arin, and they're doing various things with the yeah, with the offerings, like where they'll, it's a form of trade for them or whatever. But and there's um yeah, more that it goes with that. But and then the other thing is that it's a long enough journey that their communication between the kingdoms is handled by carrier pigeons, and the carrier pigeons have a halfway point in this tower. So it's like this bird tower in the middle of the desert that takes care of the birds and stuff. And it does have like some water and some for horses. And I'm wondering, like, do they use camels or horses? I'm still deciding as I'm writing. I'm like, maybe a mix of both. Percival has a horse, and that's one of the fun things. I think everyone else might have camels, and that's one of the fun things about Percival is he can't use the Grail, but he does give it to his horse, and that's like with him on a horse by feet, and he can give his Grail water to his horse. He's still like in danger of dying of dehydration, but the horse is like faster than the camel, and the Grail water will kind of pump it up. So he's like really fast in the desert, so he can get around uh a lot to kind of help move the story of what's all's happening. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. That's like it's almost like every this is a part of the way that I'm writing Percival, but every episode you get to invent like the systems for that episode that's going to be part of the story. Like even I'm like, man, I do this on everything, and that's like Earthbound has its systems. Um, but yeah, the next there's one I first one I wrote uh that then got kind of shelved, but I think it's actually going to be episode 5 for Percival. And each episode is 3 30-page comics. Um, and it's about the equivalent of like a 1 hour TV show or something. The whole story, the script ends up being like 50 pages or whatever. Uh, and but one is just about a bridge and a gang of boys in town who run a toll on the bridge, and then there's a scheduled duel is going to take place on the bridge, and the boys are want the duel to take place on their bridge because there's two bridges in town, and so there's like whoever gets the duel on their bridge is going to get a lot of the income, but so they can promise bigger like payback to the people controlling the fight. So there's like yeah these mechanizations of yeah, like an organized fight, and and then of course that was that one of the ideas is that if Percival walks into that situation where he can use the Grail to save someone who is like losing the fight, like the in that draft, it's one of them like falls, kind of gets stabbed and falls to his death basically, but he hasn't died yet, so he's in the river, and Percival just like saves him, so because he's like I think he knows him because he knows people because he traveled down and back up, so he'll meet people that he's known, but it's been like 10 years, um, and or sometimes you come into the story and he's just been in town for like a couple weeks. He's made friends with the guy. The guy gets dragged into a fight. I think that this one might be this way because I do that other thing on another story. That's the other thing is you can't do necessarily ideas twice. You don't really want to. So yeah, it's kind of fun to try and think of new stuff every single time. Um, but yeah, so then he knows the guy's his friend. He lost the fight, so Percival actually just saves him. But that kind of screws up all like the odds and payouts and deals that were going on with the fight to settle some scores and stuff. And then I think with that one of the because like each episode you could explore various things, but that's the first one and only one to really explore the idea that someone gets saved and they don't like it. They actually feel like the dishonor. They would have preferred to just die. And you bring him back after losing this duel, and then he doesn't know what to do with himself. He has tons of shame. he's thinking about killing himself, doesn't know what to do, and that's like cool psychologically, you know. But yeah, it's like that is a thing that could happen hypothetically, could happen to everyone, you know. But that's something that actually Percival, like, he knows these things, so he tries to talk to people after he saves them. That's in like issue one. Like he saves a couple people, and he immediately, like, as they're recovering, he kind of comes to their tent, sits down with them, and he tells them like some people have adverse reactions. Like, how are you feeling? And like he'll have to like talk them through it. But most people are, you know, the percentage of people who like are like, oh, why did you save me? That's like kind of low percentage. Uh, Comic Legends. I love they're exploring different stories and different worlds. I think you might have talked about this before, but what about a superhero style story in your style? Well, you know this the one thing is I have a script on the backlog, but I didn't write it. It's DK Thunderous wrote it. This might be one of the things I talked about, but um and he passed away during COVID, which is crazy and sad. But I have the script, and I paid for it and everything, and it's just sitting there on a drive, um and I do still want to do that, and he'll get like a special thanks and everything. Uh, and yeah, but I might not draw it. I want to. That's when I want to fund with someone else drawing it, and that would be interesting because I then didn't write it and didn't draw it, but it's a really fun superhero story that I really like. That one is a little bit more like almost like ADD. I think it's like a 60-page story, and it might have like 40 superheroes in it, and that's one thing I like about it. It's like crazy, or like 20 superheroes and 20 supervillains. Just that it's very bonkers, and I really enjoyed that. Uh, and so yeah, I'm trying to get that one made. But I do, it's like those are the kind of things that appeal to me if it's a little bit more outside the box. It's hard for me to think of. But superhero, like I do like Batman. I feel like I could write like a Batman story serviceably. I don't know. Some of them like I in theory I like Spider-Man. I love the X-Men growing up, but I don't know how comfortable I'd be even writing something like that. Although I'm trying to think, we were talking about like team books, and yeah, like team books are like kind of a big challenge, and that could be fun. Just the idea that it's a challenge is fun if you could do a team book. But a lot of times, if I start doing it, it would end up being somehow like they aren't even superheroes. You know, it's either like sci-fi or they're just like special agents and blah blah blah. I don't know why I trend that way, but um, yeah, extinct animals. Yeah. Have you ever watched shorts from Pat Manzi? He does a lot of history tidbits about empire building and negotiations. Oh, I no, I want to check those out. That sounds right up my alley of what I've been into. And yeah, you'll just hear one of those, and you're like, I could tell a story about that. That's like fun. Um, yeah, I watched a lot of Yakuza movies, and those will have it totally tracks over like Rome or whatever. Like, yeah, like Yakuza, like proxy wars within Yakuza gangs, and who, who, you know, what are they like? Who's the head of the family? And then, yeah, like going down, blah blah blah. That's all like could just be like a Rome plot. And so those can be inspiring too. I always figured there would be people with superpowers that don't want to do heroing or villainy. They just use it for an interest of theirs or a career. Yeah, that's fun. That would be fun. It's a good idea. Uh, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Talking about Percival a fair amount. The only thing is Percival. Yeah, that's a year from now. But this is the year of catching up. That's what this year is, and that's like a good thing. It's special because yeah, I got there was a delay because of Vatican City, which was amazing. But yeah, a couple projects got put on the back burner. This year's catching up. Grand Prix, the Brendan one especially, and I'm trying to squeeze in the Naked Samurai one. And the Naked Samurai one, that one's another one. Real quick, I could talk about that, but they're all like 20 to 30 page short stories. Well, because I've kind of been exploring that, but like, uh, Percival, it's like 90-page episodes, and everyone is new, and it's like, I say like an hour TV show, but literally too, another thing I watched to get in the zone was Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, where it's like, yeah, he's just cut and he's here now, cut and he's here now, new adventure. He's meeting people, and a lot of times the people he meets, it's like their story, and he just walks into it. So he kind of walks into a story, affects it, and then leaves. He's trying to do the right thing. He can be a quote unquote boring character, although there are things like Hercules is a little bit like that, but the way that he's kind of not boring because he's just cool and nice. You just like it, like I think there was a funny line from Hercules where this woman is trying to seduce him. This is Kevin Sorbo, and he's like, and she's like, come on. He's like, He's like, come on, why not? He's like, I don't want to leave a string of bastards in my wake. And I was like, dude, that's funny, man. I like you, Hercules. You're funny. Um, but but yeah, so that's like the traveling hero. Obviously, that's like an archetype. The West can do it. That's sort of a thing I'm doing with Naked Samurai, but he's a little more anti-hero ish in that one. In Percival, the one angle on him that is like fun is his relationship with the Grail. In some ways he's not into it. Like he kind of doesn't, he kind of resents it. Um, Aspects of his relationship with the Grail because the Grail does fuck with him. And then he's also in this position of being like the main medium with the Grail of helping people. So people treat him like almost more like a holy man. He hates that. So there like yeah, there are things, but then other than that, I'm like, he's literally, I kind of think of him sometimes as like Kirk from Star Trek. He's just literally trying to do the best thing to help the most people in every situation. But that I love Star Trek for that reason because then you can be in these, you can pretty quickly make a story where it's like, all right, there's literally no way where you can help everyone. You have to screw someone over. So what are you gonna do? And that's like a lot of Star Trek is like about that, and it's super awesome. And that's like Percival is definitely doing a lot of his stories are like that. Yeah, it's like I wish I could do more and go faster because there's 8, which I'm calling like season 1. I've got an idea for 8 more that are all really fun too, but those aren't written, and I don't want to even deal with those right now. But then it goes into the like the quote unquote mini series where he actually gets back to Camelot 40 years later, where he doesn't even know where Arthur is or if he's even alive, doesn't know where Lancelot is, but he kind of finds out Arthur's in exile. So like, and Camelot's been totally taken over by Mordred. Mordred's like ruled now for like 20 years. Um, and that's the situation he comes into. And like that was the original idea. Like years ago, I wrote a version of that. Before turning it into Hercules' Legendary Journeys, actually looking at his journey. But yeah, so those are 90 pages. Naked Samurai is exact same thing, but 20 to 30 pages, so way shorter, but still just trying to do everything exactly the same. Of like he wanders into a story, he affects it, not necessarily like he's even trying to do the best thing for everyone. Sometimes he will, um, but I have 5 of those, and those I'm really happy with. And part of that is like having those. I'm like I could actually send those to like people in the industry if I'm trying to get them to read some of my stuff because it is a little weird to send someone like like Cerberus. Like I'm really proud of the writing in that, but that's 210 pages. It's like they wouldn't even read it, I don't think. But I could send them like, yeah, 20-page Naked Samurai short story essentially, but it's like a one-off and make it's a good one-off, the art of the one-off comic. Um, that's yeah, that's a challenge in itself. Is like, yeah, 20 pages. Like, how good can you make it? You can't. Like, what even is it possible to even do it where it's like, and there's things like you could say, I'm like, and you think of some examples, but obviously, if it has a good emotional reaction or a crazy twist, or both, those are the kind of things that'll kind of make it memorable. Or some kind of art gimmick. Sometimes I think have become famous single issues. But yeah, the Naked Samurais have all been like that. But it's funny. So you might think like, because I was kind of thinking this, that it's pretty hard And that's another one where you're like, well, there aren't that many examples. I think people might generally accept that, yeah, like a 20-page issue, you're not going to make a life-changingly good piece of like writing that blows people's minds. You literally can't. Like maybe 90 pages, maybe 48 pages, um, maybe yeah, 200 pages. You can start to get to that point where become this memorable piece of media that people cherish, and it can change their lives or whatever. If they just really like it, whatever. But 20 pages, like you can't even do it. But maybe there are examples where here and there that happens. But what's funny is there's an old show called Have Gun Will Travel. And I've only watched like 6 episodes maybe, but they're all amazing. And that I was thinking like that they're half an hour, and every single one of them does what your most ideal perfect 20-page comic could do. Um and now as I say that, I'm like, I think a lot of like maybe Silver Age, maybe 80s comics, they did, then they would be a little more dense, the 20 pages, and they would like hit that where it's like, yeah, like it's like a half hour of TV almost equated to a 20-page comic, which nowadays that would be more like a double page a double issue 48 pager could maybe equate to like a 30-minute thing or whatever. But they used to do it in 20 pages, and yeah, that would. And sometimes they'd be like, I know, Frank Miller did that. A lot of his comics in the 80s, they're on like a 4 by 4 grid. So there would be like 16 panel pages. And I'm like, yeah, so then in that case, the modern version of that is less panels, more pages kind of thing. But yeah, you can squeeze it in. You can hit that stuff. But it's fun that Have Gun Will Travel is so good, and it's so old but so perfect, and it does do all those things. It deliberately builds to hit an emotional reaction every single time. Tell a cool little story, cool little setup, cool little like mechanizations of like world building and systems that he walks into the situation and affects it. And there's some emotion and some characters he gets to meet every time. He gets to meet some great characters. Like you can do that in every single in 20 pages. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. Like I was like, hypothetically, I feel like I could do this like 100 times, but that's like kind of crazy and unrealistic to do it. Uh, you know, for my career, that would be all I did or whatever. Maybe if I could just write something, I could focus and do something. But I'm like, as a proof of concept, let me think of 20, but let me try and do five, and just do five where it's like, yeah, these are all really good, like single issue adventures. And yeah, you got these checklists in your head you're trying to go off. Well, Red, what's up? He goes, hey, Pair. Comics Legends. What are your thoughts on AI and how people are making short movies relatively quickly? Will you explore AI and create short stories, but in your art style? I'm scared of it now just because everyone hates it. I think it feels like it could hurt your career to embrace it, but I don't hate it. I just like stay away from it. Though I do. When it was earlier, I liked it more. When it was crazier, when it was like ugly and shitty, I really liked it, and it was like fun. Um, and now it's just like, and I'm curious like where it's going. Yeah, like what can it even do? Um, I'm just curious. Yeah, like if it could make something like there's an AI thing getting made on YouTube. It's like a little web series comedy thing. Shoot, what's it called? It's called like the Will Varney Show or something like that. Uh, and it was hilarious. And I'd watch more episodes of that, and I wouldn't feel bad about it. And that is like the argument for, I guess, that's like one person doing it that wouldn't exist. That one person, it's like a random artist. They would not have a budget. That show would never exist, and it is subversive, and it would never get funding for like more than one reason. So the AI empowers this one person to be able to make this show, and it that is still even on the level where the way AI works, it is janky, and it almost adds to the charm in a way. Although that's something we're in a situation now where there's an aversion to that. That might change over time. Is like you can almost get nostalgic, like I am for early AI, mid-tier AI, where like people think it's good, but it's actually still kind of sucks. Like it can't do editing, it can't do characters being the same from shot to shot. So much it can't do. Um, and yeah, so like that makes it non-threatening in a way. And yeah, I wonder if it ever got actually threatening, that would be weird. And the thing I would worry about a little bit is like if it does get to the point where it can literally do anything or whatever, then everyone just has their own AI minstrel making them their own content to consume, and nobody is consuming shared content. Artists don't exist anymore at all. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, that feels like oddly where it could be going. Like, that doesn't feel that unrealistic, and that would be a bummer. Um, but yeah, the numbers of shared the kind of like shared experience with these artistic creations, that I wonder, like, because there's a point of that where like the Beatles, where it's like everyone on Earth listened to the Beatles, and that's something you can get nostalgic for. You're like, that's really fun, but also you're like, oh, that's CIA controlled, or if not the Beatles, then every other freaking band or whatever, or like that's a form of control is when they have everyone on Earth consuming the same media. So you're like, all right, let's decentralize it a bit. Let's decentralize it a bit. And like that's like where we are now, and it could get more, but it could get decentralized to the point where everyone has their AI minstrel and nobody shares media at all. That's like too much. We went too far. You're like, no, yeah, like if it's more just like city states of artists with they're like, if they're like thousand, if you have 1,000 readers, you're lucky. It's like, oh, it'd be sweet to have like 100,000 or 1,000,000, and then like, but I don't want to get too greedy, like and then the Beatles, it's like literally billions or whatever, which is crazy to think. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Johnny Mnemonic was around 20 pages, and it was made into a movie. Oh, I kind of want to read the comic and watch the movie. Haven't seen either. They have AI platforms now where it can keep consistent characters. Ooh, yeah. I do see an oversaturated market with everyone making their own IPs and short stories. Yeah, oversaturated. Yeah, a little worried about that. If everyone gets an AI minstrel, I'm going Amish. That's another thought of the future, is that um that might happen, and then I think that's kind of fun. Maybe that's, yeah. It all becomes real life. Someone was saying, yeah, like you can start you can start investing in like transportation companies, specifically just airlines. That airlines might boom because people get so sick of the internet that they're just more into the real world. And then another prediction was that it becomes more elite. So like the the elitists are all offline, and then the unwashed masses are all online, more like the dystopian, like fat people with VR helmets kind of thing from like Wall-E or whatever. And yeah, that's funny too. Um, and yeah, it makes me, I don't know. I guess there's nothing stopping. You don't have to be like, say you're not rich, say you're like me or us, just getting by. We can make the decision to stay mostly offline if we wanted to when the time comes. I wonder if there is that's one way to define like addiction or whatever, is like you don't know, you have to test it first. You can't even know. Like they say you can't feel your chains unless you move. So like we would have to do an actual like detox, dopamine detox for like 2 weeks to a month, see how much you miss it. And yeah, so say if you even said a month and you make it 2 weeks, you're like, shit, I accidentally checked Twitter and I said I wasn't gonna. God, then you would be addicted. And I bet we all are a little bit, but um, yeah. I feel more sick of the internet in 2026 than I ever have. Me too. I've been on Twitter a lot the past few days because I've kind of started promoting for the ramp up of Grand Prix, and I'm drawing like absolute Batman fan art is like one of my strategies. Posting it, and they like, yeah, getting likes, checking for likes every half hour or whatever, and you get dopamine from that. But some of it's like, I'm like, man, how many bots is out there? It's like so many bots. And I'm like, is it even, like, I do feel like I'm like almost like, like I was talking to some people. I'm like, maybe I'll just go to Discord and not even do Twitter anymore But Discord doesn't quite work like that social media wise. Still might need Twitter, yeah, for like promotion. Maybe I can schedule promotion. Uh, I know a lot of people just use it for somehow their like Instagram posts go to Twitter, or that, they have an assistant just posting, you know, run of the mill, or they're using AI, which you can always tell. The one thing I did notice is like the main bot thing that I've noticed, it might represent a real person, but it's run by AI and told like to post X amount of times and reply X amount of times kind of thing. But it's all like the Ethereum accounts, all like the what's it called? Bitcoin, crypto. It's all the crypto accounts. They all have the same. I wonder if it's like culty or whatever. And I supposedly like crypto a little bit. I don't know. I own some. But the the image, the profile image, it's all like the pixelated like monkey head or whatever. And I like have not met one of those that's a real person. And they're what's weird is they comment on like because I'll any like niche thing that I'm into on Twitter, of course it's coming across. So a lot of it's basketball. So I'll just be clicking on it's all engagement farming, but some of it's interesting. So I'll click on it and I'll see what people are saying. Because that used to be part of the fun of Twitter. It's like, well, what are people saying? And yeah, like it's black pill style of what people are saying. Like people are saying the most AI style thing ever. Another one is like for movies, same thing. They'll just say basically nothing. I'm trying to think what they say. The comments will be like, the comment will be like, "No way for real dog?" question mark or something like that. And and it'll be like 100 of those. No actual commentary or thoughts on the actual thing that was posted about. And that I'm getting sick of that. And I'm thinking that I kind of want to leave Twitter, but I don't know. I don't know. I did a no internet weekend last year and it was a little shocking. Time moved much slower and you feel much lonelier when alone. Yeah. Like maybe that's where we're all headed. I don't know. I have two minds regarding AI. When billion-dollar corporations fire artists and writers to use AI to produce slop, I'm disgusted. When a normal person grew up loving, say, Star Wars, is able to produce something better than the studio because they're actually passionate. Yeah, it is like a double-edged sword, and that people right now they like have a huge aversion even to the second thing, even though that sounds kind of cool to me, especially when you put it that way. Um, so I don't know, but yeah, that would be almost like I'd take that deal. Yeah, like okay, we're gonna get slop from the big guys. It's gonna get worse, but the lower guys are even more empowered. That's like kind of fun. That I think there's a little sine wave with that though of like it's like elitist versus populist for like art production. That's in I wonder if that's in this it's in one of these essays that it's not always one thing or the other. Like they're like when you say I don't know. Like there's a line from Batman 89 where the Joker says like, "Wait till they get a load of me." Like that is elitist. Like he's not talking about taking input from the people of what kind of bad guy they'd like, and then he's going to give them what they want. His whole plan is he's not going to give them what they want. He's not going to give them what they expect. See, that is like that sounds awesome. But then that also, if you think of it like, oh, that's like the Last Jedi. That's like what Ryan Johnson was saying to himself when he made the Last Jedi. You're like, okay, that sounds bad then. And then you get the audience being like, nobody asked for this. Nobody asked for this. I'm like, okay, both have points. It depends on what's going on or whatever. But yeah, it's funny. Like it's easy to romanticize like both, but especially you could romanticize the kind of populist version of like, oh, everyone's empowered. Everyone can make their own stuff. Finally, we aren't incumbent upon, or yeah, like Hollywood to make our shit for us. We can make our own stuff. And like that doesn't always work quite like you'd hope to. Turns out this is what I feel like. And it depends on like a little on the air. Like whatever, like we need some Hollywood geniuses to work their magic. Uh and you'd be like, yeah, like what about people who like fell through the cracks there's geniuses out there that didn't make it to Hollywood. They're being ignored, and it's like not as much as you'd think. In theory, yes, but it's not like a there's hundreds of them. And then you're like, well, if there's one, like that, the thing I kind of like or support or want the most is the elites to have the systems in place for finding and kind of helping out the meritocracy system or whatever. Which that feels like there's less of that across. It's like it's leaning more into like people just working with their friends or whatever. I'm like, and I think Hollywood does a little better than the comics. Comics is almost the worst at it. Uh, but yeah, so I don't know. We will only have a dummy box that connects to a Corpo server, can only access C-proof content. It's all monitored. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that'd be crazy. That would be a bummer. That's like Keir Starmer style, Britland going in that direction. Comics Legend. I think a lot of accounts who try to game the monetization on X, they replied to posts to get interactions because it paid them. Now on X, they updated it so it doesn't work the same. Yeah, there is this back and forth with the algorithm, but it's all like the crypto people. They will have an AI running their account, and it's just gonna do whatever gets the most money, and it's the worst. It totally ruins Twitter. And it's the thing. Like what is Twitter for? It's like, well, there's like 100 to 200 people I know on Twitter that I can interact with every day. That's actually kind of amazing. That's awesome. And that didn't really go away. Uh, but yeah, the one of the better old things was like scrolling and just like seeing comments that you've never seen before, thoughts that you've never heard before. That is like way, way less of a thing. Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm might wrap up here, everyone. But if you're watching this later, if you're watching this now, sign up for the mailing account if you haven't. Delay, if you don't mind, post that link one more time. If we're just go ahead and sign up, give your email so you get the update. Um, and yeah, it's expected Thursday. It might be a little late because of Indiegogo approval. Indiegogo changed; they're way different these days. But the one thing that's weirded me out is they haven't let me put in mailing shipping prices yet, and I'm like, I wonder if they switched to backer kit style where that happens after, which I'm like, ah, weird. Like if they've done that, I don't like that. But anyway, they're changed, but I gotta wait for them to approve stuff. And then it should launch on Thursday. This is kind of a big release for me. Even in the last few years, Earthbound's kind of my bread and butter. This is a trade, so now everything's collected to this point where we have three double issues combined to make Grand Prix Part One, and you can also get the third floppy, which is Grand Prix '03. Um, so yeah, so I just hope it does good. It kind of will see a little bit how my 2026 goes and starts monetarily for my own like ability to keep a roof over my head and stuff, and what I got to look at of how to do. Which I got a roommate, and I got a super little side gig that I do just one day a week. I work a regular job, and between those two things, um, I'm pretty sure I can stay afloat just with crowdfunding. But the thing I really want, the thing I like try to manifest or whatever is, yeah, let's get beyond just scraping by, get a little comfortable, and get to where I can fund some of these other books. I really want to do that. And hopefully that happens in 2026. We'll see. But yeah, will you be on Bancroft's on Friday? Not this Friday, but next Friday. And he's awesome too because he lives in Australia, so the shipping is so big. So a lot of my books he doesn't read until I go to promote, but then he always emails me. He's like, "Can you send me the digital and I'll read it and then we can talk about it?" I'm like, "Yes." So I really appreciate readers. Anyone who will read my stuff. Sometimes that feels like hard to find readers. Not necessarily for selling it and then like people who buy it read it, but like yeah, for like I don't know anyone. Like if you're trying to get network or meet someone or like trying to make friends in the mainstream industry. Like you're like, I read your book, loved it. Can I send you something of mine? They're like, no, get away from me. I'm like, okay. Um, yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks a lot for hanging out. A little bit of a rambling stream. But yeah, Grand Prix Thursday. That's kind of the main thing. I'll be posting some art. I'm close to having it all done. There's a little, I'm kind of lettering it basically, but it's gonna be a good one too. As I'm lettering it, I'm like reading it as I go. I'm like, yep, it's fun. It's a good comic. Um, yeah, that's a good project. Can't wait for people to see it. Think of what I can even say. It has pretty good emotion, psychology, dialogue. Good psychology will lead to good dialogue, and Grand Prix has a pretty fun dialogue, and it flows really good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I can see how it's like a page turner. Uh, and yeah, and I can read like some random other comics, like old comics or like mainstream comics, and I'm like, I think mine flows better than these, and I'm don't know exactly how I'm doing it, but it's like my style. And yeah, my style has like a good flow, good dialogue. Because I was thinking it's like you're trying to write it more like it was a movie in some ways. That would be like almost what I was thinking, but not like Tarantino where it's big conversations. Yeah, it's like a comic. You only want the exchange to be like 3 or 4 back and forths max. But people need to say, yeah, like interesting stuff and have interesting thoughts. Uh, and yeah, if you can do that, then it'll have like a little special sauce. Comics Legend says, see you Thursday. Tia says, thanks for the hangout. Thanks, everyone. All right, I'm going to see you guys later in the stream here. Peace out.